Hello and welcome to a Blitz diplomacy commentary. Been a very, very long time since I last did one of these. What is Blitz? Blitz is a very fast version of diplomacy. It's 5 minutes per diplomacy phase, 1 minute per retreat and build phase, and it ends in 1908. So the whole thing is over in less than 2 hours, usually about 1 hour 45. This video has been sped up 2 times, to double speed, just because it's a little easier to commentate when it's a little bit shorter, but it's really quite fast and it's not a lot of time commitment. If you're interested in playing this kind of variant, we are hosting an event on the DiploStrats Discord server over the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd and 24th of November. There'll be Blitz games happening roughly once every 4 hours, and while it's technically a tournament, you don't need to play it as a tournament. You can just hop in and enjoy the variant, right? Enjoy the format, test it out, play a bit of Blitz. It's a really fun time. Alright, plug over, I'll get to commentating the game. So in this game, I'm playing as Germany. You're gonna see as we go through the game, I do a lot of suboptimal moves. Mainly because I'm kind of rusty at Blitz. I haven't played it in a very, very long time. But a lot of the other players are also either new to the game because they came in through DiploStrats, which is absolutely fantastic, or playing on their phones, which I do not recommend for Blitz diplomacy as a heads up. I would very much recommend playing it on a PC or on a laptop, because while the people who are on phones managed to do okay, I'm really, really surprised they were able to do this. I could never type this fast on a phone and enter orders. So anyway, my approach to O1 as Germany. Initially, I messaged France and just set up a basic alliance there. France asked for a bounce in Burgundy. That's completely fine by me, right? I'm trying to keep all my neighbours happy while claiming Denmark and Holland. Those are my two early naturals. I did consider going for a more aggressive opening when England offered me an alliance against France. I thought, well, England against France, I mean, France is a really scary prospect as any of the powers around them, right? But England then said, I don't want to go in 1901. I would like to go in 1902. And if it's happening in 1902, that's, that means it's generally better to just keep everyone on friendly terms with you, because you don't want to commit to something earlier than you're actually going in for the attack. So I stay aligned with everyone. I tell Russia, hey, I'm going to let you into Sweden. That's completely fine by me, right? I think that's usually the best play for Germany. Just making sure that there's 3 powers in Scandinavia so that if England does turn against you, you have backup. If you've bounced Russia out of Sweden, you have an enemy there and you're 100% in with England. Something interesting you might note as well here is the Austrian-Italian position. The Italian has moved up to Tyrolia, and they actually told me they were going to demilitarize it, and then went in. But they did, at the last minute, inform me that they were going in, and the Austrian slips into Venice. And now, a few months ago, I would have said that this was, Austria stabbing Italy in some way. But recently, this has become a lot more common, and it's just a way to take the Austrian fleet off the board, right? You move back into Venice from Tyrolia as Italy with support, and then the Austrian takes that fleet off the board instead of retreating it and puts down army builds. I don't know if it's actually that good of an opening. I think it might be... See, the problem with it is you can't put that much pressure on Greece, right? And you have to pull Ionian out of Ionian to go to Tunis instead of convoying the army over. So Turkey gets a very, very good start right off the bat. And that's a bit dangerous for you as Austria. Turkey, you can take the guess, right? You can try and bounce Turkey out of Greece. But if they slip into Serbia, then that's even worse for you. So, I'm so-so on this opening. It didn't concern me all that much at this point anyway, because in Blitz you mainly focus on your own sphere of influence, right? And my sphere of influence, I'm not expecting to get attacked from the south pretty much at all at this point. They're doing their own thing, right? I'm focused on the north. Now, at this point, I'm still kind of between England and France. I'm making sure I'm not committing to either one of them. But when France is looking to get 3 builds like this, I went to England and went, okay, well, France getting 3 builds would be really bad for me, right? So, and it would be really bad for you too. So how about you bounce them out of Belgium? I was a bit nervous that England wouldn't do it, because England had put their army in Yorkshire. And that means that bouncing means they don't get their army off their mainland, which is a bit of a problem for England. But they do agree to do it on the condition that I put them in Belgium on the next year. And they go into Norway with their northern unit. In the meantime, France also agreed to put down 2 fleets. And that's pretty huge. That's also very, very friendly towards me, right? Mainly because they can't really launch any kind of attack on me, but they're also kind of weak to a German attack. And so, at this point, as you can see, I've just entered completely anti-France moves, because I really want to just take advantage of the fact that they've built these 2 fleets. I can push in and potentially take Paris very, very quickly here, with English assistance, and that kind of takes this French threat off the board. At this point, also, I thought that France wanted Belgium. They had said in the first year that they want it, but as you can see, just in the press here, France pivots on that and says, hey, you can have Belgium instead. It's completely fine. And I think France notices how vulnerable they are to me right now. If they go for Belgium, they are potentially letting me into Burgundy, and that's a really, really bad thing. Now, you might be wondering why, if I'm aligning myself against France, right? If I knew that France is going double fleets, did I build a fleet as well? Why did I not just put down 2 armies and go all in on this England alliance? And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's 2 all in. I really want to put down a fleet in the first year, because if I do align with England here, then I don't really get an opportunity to build a fleet again. I won't get an excuse. If I ever put down a fleet, England will know it's against them, right, and will turn on me. So I needed to get one down this year. This felt like the time. But at the same time, I didn't know where to send it, because in the north, I'd been talking to Russia and England, and both of them had like wanted to do this kind of joint friendly triple thing, right? That I kind of suggested as a way to get us to mobilize against France. But it meant that I had nowhere to go with my fleet. But at the last minute, I do actually go to Baltic. I support myself there, because Russia tells me they're going up to St. Petersburg. And if they're going up to St. Petersburg, I have an easy shot on Moscow, right? And England won't be annoyed that I broke that triple alliance with Russia, because Russia was breaking it with them anyway. And as you can see, that's exactly what Russia does. They slip into Norway behind England, and they come up to St. Petersburg, hoping to get the jump on England, and I've moved in behind them. And Russia tries to backtrack on this immediately. They go, hey, England, I actually did this by mistake. I'm going to move everything back, right? I didn't think you were moving out of Norway. And I think England kind of accepts it at this point, but that's mainly because they see all of these French fleets in the west, and they're like, I can't push back into Norway. There's nothing I can do on that front, right? I need to pivot my fleets back towards the French front, otherwise I'm going to lose Liverpool, and I value my homeland much more than I value Norway, especially considering I can't guarantee forcing Norway if he does just decide to put St. Petersburg support hold Norway in there. A big thing here as well, France had asked me on the previous turn to tap North Sea, to allow them to try and take English Channel, right? And I don't do that. I go for Baltic instead with support and move everything up to the Burgundy line. So at this point, I am fairly convinced that, I'm going in against France. I have just stabbed them after all. I've decided to commit. However, France sends me a message at the start of that phase saying, are you able to tap North Sea again? And that makes me think, wait, did they not just see me stab them? Like, did they miss that I didn't tap North Sea? And actually, in the post-game, I asked them about this, and they said I was playing on a phone, right? I was having to open the press box pretty much immediately, and it covers the entire screen, and, advance to the next phase, so I don't actually get that much of a view of what happens in the phase. So I get a bit lucky here, and France just doesn't notice what's going on. And England goes ahead and asks, hey, can I get Belgium now? I've been offering, you offered me Belgium on this turn. And I was just like, do I go for that? France actually thinks I didn't stab them. I could hold Belgium here and take Sweden, be in a really good position for an FG, right, where I am super powerful. And I changed my orders at the last moment to stop England getting back in. At this point, I've basically committed to France's side. However, I didn't change all my orders in time, and France asked for that bounce in Burgundy, and I didn't do it. So France now ends up on my line, and I've annoyed England and Russia, which is not a good thing. Generally speaking, even though in Blitz, last-minute decisions are pretty much guaranteed, right? There's not much you can do about that. You shouldn't be changing your orders at the very last second, because things like this can happen. You end up being a little screwed. At this point, I'm very strongly debating between fleet or fleet army. I decide at the end to go fleet army because of those Russian units in Livonia and Warsaw. I think fleet could be justifiable, just going all out and trying to take the northern seas while just putting a minimal defense on your homeland. But doing that requires trusting France. And with France in Burgundy, I'm a bit less certain about that. I would like to try and negotiate some truce with Russia in particular, right? Just so that... just so that I'm not having to put all of my eggs in one basket. And I think if I put a fleet down, it very much encourages Russia to just come onto my line with all of their armies. Whereas this way I can defend myself a little bit more, right? So, at this point, I apologize to France. Hey, I didn't bounce you out of Burgundy. Thing is, that's not really a stab on them in any way. So it's kind of fine for a continuation. It's just put them in a slightly better position against me, right? So, and it was pretty clear from my orders that I was entering things last second, and so didn't manage to get things in when I did. It was pretty evident that it was a misorder. Quite often in diplomacy you have misorders in inverted commas that people do, and they're not really misorders, they're just things that someone has put in to to keep their unit where it is or in a better position against you. That obviously wasn't the case here. But I still decide, hey, I'm gonna trust France. France is telling me that I'm safe on this front. They could take Belgium, but if they take Belgium, I can form up a line behind that, and actually my negotiations with England here are super interesting. I thought they'd be mad at me, right? And yet, they immediately just go, hey, look, I'm still looking to defend my homeland. That's my main enemy here is France. So, you can kind of do what you want, and I'll head back. I'll just defend myself. And I'm like, well, yeah, that works fine by me, right? That's a fantastic thing for me. If I don't have to worry about defending Sweden and Denmark, mainly from English incursion into Skagerrak, it probably won't be that bad, an incursion into Skagerrak, because they'd lose their home centres quite quickly, and so the fleet would come off the board. But it would power up France against me. And that's what I was worried about here. So I was very happy to see England just defend against France. It slows France down a bit, makes sure that I'm the power player in this alliance. And as you can see from the Russian border, I am very much still at war with them here. They went into Prussia with support. I end up in Silesia at the same time. And I was trying to see if there was a way to coordinate with Austria, right? I think at this point I offer them support into Warsaw. Maybe I don't, actually. But I certainly had messaged them a little before. But I think at this point, I just actually go, hey, Russia, can we just peace out in this position? I don't want to be committing all these units to the line where I'm not going to actually gain anything, right? And you've clearly got this AI in the south and Austria-Italy alliance, which is about to run over Turkey, and which could be super dangerous in the long term, because if Austria gets really powerful, right, then I'm going to be their next natural target after Turkey and Russia. They could go for Italy, but because this Austria is so, like, army focused, they haven't got that initial fleet. Going for Italy is going to be really, really tough. They can only go in via the Trieste route, and Italy has that one army stationed in Venice just to keep defending themselves. So I would like to see them weaken, so I asked Russia for peace, and Russia seems to be open to that, on the condition that they get to keep Norway, which is a condition I'm completely fine with. I can't easily take it anyway while I'm going for England. So I go ahead and say, hey, that's completely fine. Meanwhile, England is still happy to help me against France, to just defend their line against France. And that is excellent for me, right? I should say I put in Silesia support Prussia to Warsaw here. It should actually be Silesia support Warsaw to Galicia. There we go. That is what Russia wanted in exchange for backing out. And I am leaving myself a tad open here, because I asked France to bounce me in Munich. And that gives them the opportunity, if they want, to not bounce that and to tell Russia, hey, I'm not going to bounce that. You can go into Berlin behind me. I was quite worried about this possibility because France could take Belgium at the same time as doing that, and that would leave me in a pretty horrible position. But I decided to go ahead and trust them. I think it's maybe a bit too much coordination for a Blitz game at this point. So I'm thinking they probably won't do that. So England is going to pivot back against France, and they actually tell me, hey, tap the North Sea behind, backfill it if I'm going into English Channel. And I go, yeah, I will absolutely do that. So I go into North Sea here. Now, they did ask me to tap it, which is usually done without support, but I could have misinterpreted that to go in with support instead, which is kind of the excuse I use for what I've done here. I forced my way into North Sea. England is forced to retreat, can go to Edinburgh, right? And France is positioned well against England now. They've convoyed their army up to Wales, but notably they are now a little weak on the home front because they have these three fleets, they have two armies. The two armies should really be in defense against Germany. Well, they don't have to be, right? But if you want to be safe against Germany, they should be in defense. But Wales is now completely separated. So if I get my units on the Burgundy line, I can now push in quite easily. And given that England has been so agreeable with me through this entire time, this feels like it will be the time to go in. And you can see I just immediately put in anti-France moves. I'm going to move everything down to that line. I'm going to attack Burgundy all out in the fall. Yeah, I won't get anything this year, but as long as I can keep France from getting anything as well, I will be in a fantastic position to go in against them. There's no way they can get enough armies back on their line, because once you're knocked back past Burgundy, you don't really have a good 2-unit line to defend, even if you convoy Wales back, right? If it gets convoyed back to Picardy, but Burgundy is already forced out, then Burgundy pretty much has to retreat to Gascony, and then those two units get separated when they try and cover Paris and Marseille. There's a little bit of, so there's a little bit of debatable, there's a little bit of guesswork, is what I meant to say, on which of those you should go for. Like, France can block you out of a few if they guess correctly, but they will fall eventually, and there's nowhere they can pick up builds in order to get those extra armies that they need. At this point, I have promised Russia that I will come down into Bohemia to help them. But I was thinking, I don't know if I want to do that, right? It will annoy the Austrian. I don't actually need the Russian to make progress, I just need them to hold. And I would really like to get back into Munich. But France tells me here, I want to go pull back to Marseille. And at that point, I changed my entire order set. You can see here I'm now going Belgium into Burgundy, Holland into Ruhr, Berlin into Munich, and Silesia into Bohemia, because I do trust what France is saying here. And if they're backing out of Burgundy, this is absolutely fantastic for me. I will just get a free Paris this year. And a free Paris is exceptional. And now I'm telling England, hey, I'm going to hold you in London. But England's debating on whether that's the right move because they don't know what France is going to do. And they just say, do what you think is best. And I tell them this with 20 seconds on the clock, right? I'll hold London. And so they don't have time to react. This is another important thing in Blitz. You need to get your messaging across earlier so that people can get their orders in. As you can see, London tries to move out to English Channel, and so my support hold is irrelevant. It gets invalidated because you can't support hold a moving unit, and England is forced to retreat it. And this makes me quite sad, because otherwise France would be taking a unit off here. You can see me just rolling the cursor around it there going, curses! How could this happen to me? But yeah, France gets into London, and there's no good way to knock them out here. We could tap Wales and try and support Yorkshire to London, right? But English Channel can just support all London. Importantly, if they do want to guarantee holding London, though, they can't go for Belgium. Which I could have used as like I can maybe make some efficient moves here, but I do generally play a bit safe, so I go and cover Belgium anyway, just in case, right? And meanwhile, I'm trying to keep Russia on side anywhere I can on the other front, because I really don't want Russia coming for me. I did notice they just moved Moscow up to St. Petersburg, and that makes me a little nervous, because with this moveset, if nothing bounces Denmark, right, I'm gonna end up in a position where Sweden has nothing defending it. So if St. Petersburg goes to Finland, then Norway and Finland can go for Sweden together. The only way I can really counter that is a cut on Norway from North Sea, but I need North Sea to be facing down France here. So I really need to keep Russia on side. I do ask them about that St. Petersburg unit, and they say, hey, yeah, it's just defensive. I'll do everything I can to keep it being defensive. So I'm going to do whatever they want in Austria. I'm going to go ahead and say, I can support you to Vienna if you really want it, because that'll be very helpful for me. But I don't actually want Russia building, because if they build, they can put down Army Warsaw, and that would be really dangerous for me in this position. Notice how I'm pushing all my units forward towards the French line, but I'm only getting the one build here. That means that I won't have that much to cover my eastern front, and so I do not want any possibility of Russia jumping me, right? So I go to Austria and I say, hey, I'm gonna be on side with the Russian here, but I don't actually want them to grow. So please defend Vienna with 2 units. And in retrospect, I don't know whether that was correct or not, because of course Austria's in Greece here, so they're gonna get a build off of this. And do I really want them that much stronger than the Russian? Probably not, right? Because Austria can push up to my line as well. They can't do it quite as easily as Russia can, but they can come in all along the Tyrolia-Bohemia line and still cause me a lot of issues. You'll note that on the other front, France had a mod. And that was because of the phone issue, right? They were trying to enter orders on their phone. I'm not 100% sure what happened, because they said they had autosave on, and autosave on WebDip is generally pretty good at saving your orders immediately as you enter them. But this NMR kind of changes the game. NMR means no moves received, right? Because they were going to convoy Wales back to Brest and move North Atlantic back to Mid-Atlantic. And if they do that, their position in France is a lot stronger, right? And they don't have the units on England anymore. So they probably focus fully on trying to keep me out of those French centres. Whereas what happens in the end, so they say in public chat they missed the ready button there. You shouldn't need to press the ready button for your orders to be saved. So I don't really know what happens there. But what happens in the end here is France just decides, after this NMR, I'm not in a position to defend myself very effectively. I'm going to try and keep what I can. In fact, I think they outright tell me I would like to keep Brest, but outside of that, I'm going to go all in on England. And that's music to my ears, right? I'm perfectly fine with them attacking England as hard as they can, because I know England's going to defend themselves, right? England's going to defend themselves as hard as they can, and that's kind of a situation that benefits me. I can just try and sweep up these SCs on the French front as quickly as I can. And as long as I make sure they're not getting any builds off of England, right? They're not building anything at home. Their relocation is basically putting them in a position that I'd have to attack eventually anyway, right? Because I need to go in on England at some point. But I really want to wipe out France first. If France relocates to England, that's just the same thing the other way around. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to push myself into Gascony. I'm going to move myself into Burgundy. I'm still trying to keep Russia as happy as possible, so I'm going to move down to Tyrolia. Tyrolia is dual purpose, right? It's both to keep Russia happy and it's to make sure that Austria cannot force themselves into Tyrolia. They could do it with Italian help, and I think at this point Italy tells me that they're going to. Yeah, Austria is trying to get me to move Tyrolia, right? And I say, please don't, we can work together against France, and I'm good to get you Marseille or Spain. I don't really want them in Marseille or Spain. I'm a little worried that they'll be bigger than me in the long term if they get those centres, and that's my natural expansion, right? But it beats them coming for me. So I try and get them to move that way, and they do. Austria doesn't actually go for Tyrolia at all, so I get in there, and Russia's very happy with this because I can now help them against Vienna even more, right? And I need to go and apologise to Italy to say, hey, I'm sorry that I broke our DMZ in Tyrolia. I didn't tell you I was going there, but I was concerned that Austria was going to come after me, especially after what you said. So, which they seem to accept. They go ahead and say, I'd like to take Iberia, can you help me with this? And as you can note, I'm not particularly interested in helping them with this. I do immediately enter Paris supports Gascony to Brest. And as long as Italy cuts Marseille, this is guaranteed to work. Because the only possible counter is Marseille support Brest to Gascony, that braces it 2v2, right? But Marseille gets cut by Piedmont, and then we're completely fine. So this is a great order set for taking Brest. Unfortunately, I don't actually keep this order set in towards the end of the phase. We'll see what exactly happens there later. Meanwhile, in the north, this phase is just full of blunders for me, mainly because I'm not thinking fast enough, right? Russia asks if they can have Sweden just in order to back up their line in the south. And I was looking at the number of units down there, right? The Italian units in particular. Maybe Russia can then afford to send their Sevastopol unit to Armenia and back up the Turk. And I thought, yeah, that's going to be great for me. I'm getting builds from France anyway, right? And I can potentially take a build from England here. I can just grab Edinburgh, because that's probably going to be undefended. As you can see, I order it in. And so I go, yeah, you can have Sweden. But please move St. Petersburg down south, because I would, I would think you should be defending with that army as well if you're going to be defending. And they say, sure. And in my mind at this time, that was a perfectly decent trade. Looking at it in retrospect, it's horrific. You should never give over Sweden in this situation. You just say to them, hey, just move St. Petersburg south. That's the unit that you need. But I was kind of obsessed with keeping them on side. We'll see what that does in a minute. Over in the west... Sorry, I've got 30 seconds to talk about this. I know that Piedmont is moving to Marseille and Lyon is moving to Spain. Now, I go to France and I say, hey, France, I would like to prop you up against this Italian attack because I don't want this AI coming in. How about, I help you with that? And France does something really smart. They say, hey, that's fine, just take Spain. And they know Italy is probably going to go to Spain and bounce me out of there. And I look at this and I realise, oh, okay, well, that's not going to work. I'll switch back to my original order set. I'll switch Burgundy. I'll make sure Burgundy holds Marseille, but I'll switch back on Brest. And in doing so, I enter it the wrong way around. I enter Gascony support Paris to Brest instead of, as I initially had in, Paris support Gascony to Brest. And that order set is not guaranteed, because Marseille can cut Gascony, which it does. And so I don't get that. And this is a really huge problem. I do, thankfully, not have to disband a unit, because I slipped into Edinburgh behind England, right? So I go plus Edinburgh minus Sweden, and Russia builds Army Warsaw, which is the only option, right? They've moved the army south. They could build in St. Petersburg, but that's not what they told me they were going to do. They told me they were going to build in the south. And I look at this position now, I'm like, oh god, I was expecting a build. Look at this Russian position against me if they really want it. They can move into Prussia and Silesia at the same time. I'm under pressure from France on the English front. I'm probably not going to keep Edinburgh. I can try, but I'm likely not going to, right? And so... and so I just look at this and panic. I'm like, hey, there's no way I can hold this against Russia if they go against me right now. I need to retreat. I need to back off and hold it. And now I could have trusted Russia and said, you know, okay, Sevastopol goes through to Armenia here, Moscow goes through to Sevastopol, we try and push you forward on the Austrian front, but I'm a bit of a paranoid player. And I'm thinking, if Russia is playing in their best interest, they probably do stab me here. They come to some agreement with Austria, and they go over the line. And I do not want to risk that. So I go ahead and turn around, go, oh god, I'm going to run away. I'm going to go back to Silesia, I'm going to go back to Munich, and I'm going to try and make Italy happy with me as well, again, because I don't want Italy and Austria following me into Bohemia and Tyrolia as I run away. And that means, you know, just letting Italy take Marseille. I'm going to go ahead and take Brest for myself. And back off. And I ask Russia about, hey, can you move that fleet Sweden back to St. Petersburg? And they say, no, but I can move it to Norway if you want, which is basically the same thing. And up top, like, this is a bit weird. It's where it's a bit unclear what I was thinking at the time, because I trust them to do that, right? I move Belgium into North Sea behind them and go into Sweden to basically pincer Norway and try and take both at once. But that only works if they're doing exactly what they told me they'd do, and I'm clearly panicking on the south side, right? And thinking, oh, Russia isn't going to do what they're going to do. I think the reason that I do this is just that I think, you know, even if they don't move Sweden, it's still kind of worth trying for it just in case they're being honest there, and I can get the dots for free. And it nearly works. I managed to get into Sweden. I don't manage to get into North Sea. I think a better thing to have done here would have been supporting myself into North Sea anyway. But, you know, it's worked out okay. I've got a dot here, and Russia is now incredibly angry at me because I just backed off. I'm trying to give some excuses here. I saw the Warsaw build in the empty Berlin and panicked. I kind of assumed you'll hit pressure in Silesia, and Russia goes, oh, you're going to vacate it, right? It'll be fine. And I go, yeah, sure. But what I really should have done is just been honest with them and go, I'm not sure I can trust you now that I've pulled back. Like, I moved into Sweden. You might be wanting revenge. So I kind of lie to them. I probably shouldn't have lied to them here. I go for pressure and Silesia. This is primarily a defensive moveset. I know it looks quite aggressive, but the reason for it is, like, if Warsaw pulls back to pressure, I kind of need to block them out of there. It does also function as aggressive moveset if Russia trusts me, but I don't think Russia is going to do that. You can see me going a bit back and forth on this phase as well as to whether I'm going to support Belgium into North Sea or Edinburgh into North Sea. There's a very good reason for that. The reason for that is that if... They only have one unit on Edinburgh right now. They have Yorkshire. Liverpool is not adjacent to Edinburgh because it's a fleet. It needs to crawl around the coast to Clyde and then attack it, thanks to my bounce there on the last turn. Now, that means Yorkshire is almost certainly going to Edinburgh, right, to cut. which means that their best moveset could well be London supports English Channel through to North Sea. And so I'm a little worried about that. I don't want to lose North Sea here. My sensors around there are too open, so I can flip that over, but then if they don't attack North Sea with 2, if they go English Channel support Gascony up to Brest or something, then this will pull Edinburgh out of Edinburgh and I'll lose it to Yorkshire. So I eventually decide to risk it. I decide to go cover North Sea, but I don't tap Norway, and France has gone to Russia and said, hey Russia, can you support this unit as well? And Russia says, sure, because I just stabbed them, right? And I should have tapped Norway with Sweden. I think I didn't because, it feels bad to do so. If I'm taking one of Sweden or Norway, I really want it to be Sweden. Because if it's Norway, my sensors are a bit more split up. The Russian unit might end up in Skagerrak or something, and then I have a bit of a problem. Thankfully, I get 2 builds. They kind of have to be fleet army. I think I debate a bit on fleet, right? But armies are just so much more important for holding your line in the late game. Usually you'll want to be in a kind of position where you've cleared up the north a little bit and you're just on your line against the southern powers. But unfortunately, I've still got this France that has 3 centres and is in North Sea. So I was really considering that fleet just to, make sure my line there is a bit more secure. But eventually I decide against it. I go, hey, the army line is probably what I need because my main competition for this win is now going to be Italy. And if I have Italy as my main competition, then, this Italy-Austria alliance is really my main threat, right? They can push across the line. If France slips into a centre here, it's bad, but it's not the worst thing in the world, because they don't have enough units to really back that up, right? North Sea, it's a really interesting problem, because I could try and defend absolutely everything I can against it, right? I could, for example, hold in Belgium, and then, cover Denmark and Holland in the way I am doing. But if I do that and defend absolutely everything, then I'm kind of pinning all my units in to deal with one unit that can only do one thing. And that doesn't feel like a good exchange, right? It doesn't feel like a good exchange at all. So the best way to do it is probably just to take some defensive moves, hedge a little bit, but not necessarily go all in on defending against it. Just let it take something if it really wants to, and we can figure out how to deal with it after this phase. And as you can see, that's what I eventually do. Kiel goes up to defend Denmark. I pull Burgundy back to Belgium here. And I think Italy basically says, hey, we're good to still be on the same side if you don't go into Gascony. I'm not 100% sure whether they're being honest with that or not, right? Especially since we're into the last 2 years of the game, and it's mainly going to be me versus them for the board top. I kind of want to just break that and make sure I'm pinning them in. And it's kind of important to do so, because if they don't move a unit into Piedmont here, then by moving 2 units down into Gascony and Burgundy, if they don't bounce either of those, I either get Marseille or I stop them from taking Portugal. And those are quite important things. You can see here Russia is super angry at me because earlier in the game they had said, hey, I'm going to let you win, right? This was after I'd come down and helped them around Vienna and everyone else had been attacking them. And that was kind of the same time that my paranoia struck and I pulled back into Silesia and Munich. I just didn't believe that. And now I'm thinking, okay, I kind of need to smooth this thing over with Russia, because in the end game, this is going to be between me and Italy. I need to have Russia at least a little friendly with me so that they are willing to contest Italy in the south. And that kind of works out. I go ahead and say, I missed that message just for one. I did actually miss that message when they sent it, because they sent it a year ago. And then I say, I'm paranoid, I'm sorry. But it seems like we've managed to entangle our forces anyway, so maybe we can work together a little bit here. And they seem open to that, actually. You know, they go ahead and say, yeah, we can be chill. Again, I think they request that I leave them Norway. And here you can see I'm checking the supply center count because I want to make sure that Russia isn't a competitor for the win. Right? They look like they're kind of large. They're about to take Smyrna as well. So maybe they'll get there, but like, no. They're at 6 centers. The leaders are at much higher center counts than that. I think 8 or no, 10 at this point, right? So they're not going to catch up by the end of the game. There's only a year and a half left. My press with Italy is just completely pointless at this point. I'm going, oh, I misordered, ha ha ha. But it's an obvious joke, right? I've moved into pin Marseille, and it has absolutely worked. They have to support hold Marseille with Spain now, which means they cannot take Portugal. That could be an issue, in that it allows France to keep the extra fleet on the board, right? And that fleet has just gone into Heligoland Bight, which is an annoying province for me. It's not as annoying as North Sea, notably, but it is quite an annoying one. But if they had to take a unit off, that could be very, very good for me. But I think it's not as good for me as it is for Italy, right? Italy just gets the dot uncontested, and all it allows me to do is maybe get a dot at a later date. So right now I'm just trying to deal with that Heligoland Bight fleet, and actually France asks whether they can move back out to North Sea, and I go ahead and say, yeah, you can move out to North Sea, and they're like, oh yeah, because you're taking London, right? And I go, yep, I'm taking London. So they move back out to North Sea with their fleet, and that's going to be a little awkward for me, right? In the final year, they're going to be able to position around London to try and take it back. And I kind of need to hang on to that centre in order to have a good shot at winning. But they don't have the immediate force necessary to take it, and there are a few ways I can counter their approach around it, right? They have North Sea, they have Edinburgh, but what they really need to do is pull Edinburgh down to Yorkshire and pull Yorkshire into Wales. And if I can block that, I'm good. It's tough to block that without risking losing London immediately, but I do actually find a way, and you'll see that in the moves of this turn, right? So now we've got 1 year left. This is the dash to the finish line. I am currently competing with Italy, and I think myself and Italy are still on the same center count. So it's going to be pretty vital for me to make sure that Italy doesn't make gains. Unfortunately, they have now moved Piedmont to Marseille, which means they can cover and unpin that Spanish unit, right? They can do Piedmont, support hold Marseille, and Spain to Portugal, and then my attack on Marseille doesn't work. And as you can see, I'm kind of betting on them doing that here. I go ahead and enter counter moves to that. It's a bit of a 50-50. I go, okay, I'm going to go for Spain and hope. The problem is they can also counter this moveset if they just don't care about the possibility of me attacking Marseille with 2, and they go Spain to Portugal, Marseille to Spain, Piedmont to Marseille. So it's a bit of a 50-50 here over whether this will work. As you can see in the north against France, I've entered Denmark to North Sea with support from London. So the important thing here is that if they want to move Edinburgh down to Yorkshire and Yorkshire across to Wales, they will always lose North Sea, because they have nothing they can protect it with, right? They can't support hold it, and they can't cut London either, because their Yorkshire unit has to be moving to Wales. So this 100% guarantees that France will not have 3 units around London in the fall turn. Or at least if they do, they'll get dislodged from North Sea, so they can't possibly. An important part of this is that I am cutting Norway, though. Even though I've said to Russia, we can be friends again, Russia did come into Cilicia, but that doesn't matter too much, right? Because Cilicia is not... It's not an issue by itself, and I'm going to pull Bohemia back so that I have a defensive line against it. You'll see I switch my Munich move to Kiel here, just to cover the possibility that Galicia comes up to Silesia. Silesia goes to Prussia, and then Tyrolia will be able to tap Munich. So I need something in position to be able to hold Berlin. But I do go for Norway here. And France almost gets me to change. You can see I flipped my order to going to Bothnia for a second, because France kind of goes, I'd recommend moving to Bothnia, no reason, smiley face. And I'm like, wait, are they giving me a heads up that I can take St. Petersburg here? And so, without thinking too much about it, I enter that move, and then I think about it and I go, wait, if I do that, then my North Sea counter move doesn't work, right? Because Norway can support Edinburgh out into North Sea, or can support North Sea hold. I kind of expected it to support North Sea hold, but they did it the other way around. And I won't be cutting that unit. So they'll stop me from, they'll be able to hold North Sea. And so I flip it back just in time, and I do get into North Sea as a result of that. And I tell France, you nearly got me with that. Just saying something last minute. Don't pay attention to your enemies if they tell you to do something at the last second of a blitz turn. That's generally a pretty bad idea. But yeah, so that works out okay. I go to Russia and I say, hey, I'm going to, can you please get Austria on side and try and get them to take Bulgaria, because I really need Italy to lose something in the south so that I beat them, right? The problem here is that Italy can move Bulgaria to Constantinople and attack Smyrna with 2 units, and Russia cannot hold Smyrna. So although they have gotten into Constantinople, they can't keep it. They can't keep both. So Italy is going to stay even there. And I lost the 50-50 guess on Marseille versus Spain, which is a real pain. Italy moved Marseille to Spain and bounced me out. So now I have another 50-50 guess there, right? I can either I can either move to Spain again and hope that they're staying still in Portugal and covering to try and get the SC there, or I can support myself into Marseille. You'll note that I've chosen to support myself into Marseille. I think this is the one that Italy will think I won't do, because this one doesn't, this one probably doesn't gain me a supply center, right? The important thing is that if they defend against this, if they go Piedmont support Marseille, then they cover Spain with Portugal, then it's France who gets the extra SC out of it, right? France keeps Portugal. And that's kind of important. That's actually really vital for me, because it means Italy doesn't go up 1, and I can stay just ahead of Italy. And I'm not really expecting to take Norway here. I've got a bit of a 50-50 on that as well. France doesn't have much they can do with their unit, except tap North Sea or support Norway out the other way. So they had a 50-50 on which way to go with that. I flipped between them a bit. I eventually decide to go to Norway with North Sea and assume France is tapping, and that turns out to be correct. So I get into Norway here. I do manage to take that one. Italy tries to cover Spain and walks out, so they end up not taking Portugal, which ends up being super important, right? And Italy manages to keep everything else on the south side, but I still just about edge them out on 11 centers to 9. And that has been this game of Blitz Diplomacy. I hope you've enjoyed. It's pretty clear that I'm rusty at this game. I haven't played it in a very long time. If you were watching the press very closely, you'll see there's a lot of points where I say things in a bit of a suboptimal manner, or I don't make my alliances as solid as they really need to be, right? Especially being paranoid about the Russian when they decided not to come for me anyway. I could have read that situation much, much better. Whatever the case, it was still an absolute blast to play. Thank you very much to the other people on the Diplostrat server who offered to play a recorded game with me. It was fantastic to be able to play with you all. And I do want to remind everyone as well that we are doing a Blitz event if you want to play this variant. It's a super fun time. I can 100% confirm that myself. So please, if you want to be involved in that, please go ahead and join the DiploStrats Discord server. It's linked in the description below. And have a look at the Blitz Bonanza section. It will be open to everyone, even people who haven't played Blitz before. You can also just go and find a Blitz game. They don't run all that often, but they do run sometimes in the looking for Blitz games section of the server. Alright, I think that's everything from me. My voice is going, so I'm going to call it there. I hope you have enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.